Mythology is the timeless collection of stories from ancient cultures that carries through history humanity's curiosities, fears, desires, and hopes. Often devoid of rationale and logic, myth is the place where we suspend our disbelief and engage in a dream world. But the characters we encounter and the trials and tribulations they undergo could be the reflection of something much deeper. Mythology also presents us with a manifestation of the psychology of the society from which it arose, embodying within its themes and motifs the varying elements of the human condition. Joseph Campbell was an American writer and professor of literature who specialized in comparative mythology and religion. His work touched the lives of many people by providing a framework for understanding mythology as the manifestation of a deeper, universal language which transcends time and culture and embodies the call to the transformation of our consciousness. From a psychological perspective, mythology can be viewed as the manifestation of the fears and values of the society from which it emerged. The earliest forms of myth are the metaphorical embodiment of the human condition conveyed by societies who are unable to express these ideas through the language of the time, some believe due to the lack of a sophisticated conceptual vocabulary. Today we have entire fields of psychology and psychoanalytic theory dedicated to the understanding of elements of the human condition, such as emotion, motivation, and trauma, along with a detailed vocabulary to impart knowledge of the interpretation of these internal elements. Our ancestors, however, would grapple with internal conflicts through the medium of storytelling, by personifying concepts and ideas within fictional characters and having those characters play out against one another in varying narrative structures. The stories were then carried down through generation to generation, providing an ethical system and a framework for understanding the world and our place in it. Joseph Campbell dedicated his life to the study of mythology and religion. In his 1949 work, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, Campbell identifies similar thematic patterns which reoccurred throughout the stories he studied. Campbell argued that the reoccurring themes and motifs were a manifestation of universal, deeply entrenched ideas and concepts, or the collective unconscious, a concept first developed by Carl Jung. Campbell developed this idea and claimed that the reason why certain mythological stories survive and the themes are so translatable across time and culture is precisely because they align with the collective unconscious. The undercurrent of these stories evoke within us all the drive to embark on a spiritual or psychological journey into the unknown and realize our full potential. One such universally recurring archetype within mythology is that of the hero, which is the personification of the idealized qualities and characteristics of the culture from which he or she emerged. Campbell mapped out a specific reoccurring narrative structure illustrating the hero's journey, which he found to be common across many mythological stories. He called this structure the Monomyth, as it refers to a single story with many variations and is relevant to the entire human race. Campbell outlined 17 steps which can be further categorized into 3 main stages in the monomyth which illustrate the hero's journey. The 3 main stages are departure, initiation, and return. Not all stories will contain all 17 steps, but they will usually follow the same stage structure. In a general sense, the monomyth depicts an individual who leaves their status quo with the help of some form of supernatural sage and is thrust into the unknown, where they must overcome perilous challenges and confront a dark power. The hero then undergoes a process of transformation, at which point they return to their original place of origin, now imbued with a new sense of meaning, serenity, and knowledge. If this sounds familiar, it is because this is one of the most widely used thematic structures within modern film and storytelling. Star Wars, Harry Potter, and The Lord of the Rings are all modern-day examples of the monomyth, as they all follow the same narrative arc outlined by Campbell in The Hero with a Thousand Faces. The reason why the monomyth is so popular is because it illuminates a part of the subconscious that yearns for a courageous encountering and assimilation of the unknown into our framework of understanding, The stories which convey the monomyth are literal embodiments of a spiritual and psychological journey we all must face in our lives. This could relate to the conquering of an element of our psyche, such as the ego or the shadow, or an external challenge or threat we must overcome. We vicariously play out this spiritual journey every time we watch a film or read a book which is animated by this mythological structure. The various challenges and revelations the characters experience, according to Campbell, are a mirroring of our own internal experiences, and the hero acts as an optimal model for the development of our own psyches. The death and rebirth of the protagonist is an important theme in mythology, as it symbolizes the necessary processing and overcoming of an aspect of ourselves which is either holding us back or actively sabotaging, for example, our fears or ego. Stage 9 and 10 of Campbell's Monomyth captures the idea of this necessary death and rebirth, and the consistent re-emerging of this theme across mythology emphasizes the importance of the metaphorical death and rebirth as a fundamental part of our process of psychological and spiritual growth. This theme can be seen reflected in Norse mythology, where Odin sacrifices his eye into the well of Mimir before impaling himself on his spear and later hanging himself on the well tree for 9 days, after which he gained understanding of a higher knowledge. In the Christian religion, Jesus gave himself up to the Romans as a form of sacrifice. He was tortured, crucified, and then buried, but rose from the dead 3 days later before ascending into heaven. A state of ascension is symbolic of achieving higher levels of consciousness. Siddhartha Gautama, who later became the Buddha, rejected his wealthy lifestyle and embraced a life of asceticism or extreme discipline, devoid of any earthly pleasures. After 49 days of meditation, he became the Buddha, which translates as enlightened one. These are just some examples of how the stories we have told for thousands of years embody similar themes which are translatable across culture and language, whether they are based on real historical figures or completely fictional. These stories convey the idea that sacrifice is an essential component on the road to psychological or spiritual rebirth and higher levels of consciousness. Whether the sacrifice is heading out of your comfort zone into the unknown, or transcending your pride and ego in order to open your mind to alternative possibilities or experiences. Campbell's work has allowed us to view mythology as the carrier of ancient ideas which continue to inspire feelings of awe and wonder in whatever shape they take, pointing to the idea that there may well be a universal consciousness which connects us all, regardless of race, language, or culture. If we listen closely, these stories can allow us to understand our own individual journey from a mythological perspective, and eventually come to the knowledge that the journey is not so individual after all.